I'm working in my dad's store. This is child labor, by the way. We're there in the corner store. I'm 14 years old and I'm working. I'm doing these mindless tasks. I'm fixing the wrappers of the products. I'm working on the till. I'm trying not to look up at the adult magazines on the top shelf. It's a boring day. We're not allowed to look or go onto my dad's computer. This is before smartphones were released. I'm hungry. I'm allowed to have one packet of crisps, but I have to take them from the best before shelf, which my father still sells, but at a reduced price. It's a very slow day. Finally, after what felt like ages, it's 7 p.m. and it's time to wrap up. We're putting down the shutters, wrapping up the newspapers, closing down the till, and my brother asks my dad, how much have we made today? My dad's there like doing the numbers, he's calculating from the till, counting the cash, and he looks up and he says, today's revenue was £98. Sounds pretty good. I'm actually kind of impressed. Okay, we made £100 in one day. That's pretty good. And this is where my father has to teach me about the concept of profit. £98 was the revenue, but when you minus the original price of the products that we sold, the rent, the electricity, profit, my father says, was £41. And all three of us look almost ashamed at that. Our entire family worked for the entire day and we made £40. My friend Harrison, who's also 15 years old, he makes £40 a day in his part-time job as a waiter in a restaurant. I thought it was cool that my dad owned his own business and that, we were there helping out. But this was the moment that I realized that I didn't actually want to go down his footsteps. That I didn't want to be this overworked and underpaid businessman or employee. But there's got to be a better way than this. I realized only years later, what my father lacked was not discipline or character traits. He worked very hard. He was told to work hard and that he would make enough money. That's what our parents' generation was always told. What our parents lacked was education and exposure. They knew that there's some people out there who are making 2 or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times more than them. Right? Our parents always looked up to the doctors and those like professional science degrees and everything. This is why our parents think university is really important, because they've looked up to those people that make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times more money than our parents do. But our parents were never exposed to the kinds of people who make 100 times what they do. Who makes 100 times more than my father? I do. And the reason why is because of this first book that we're going to discuss today, The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. I read this book in 2019 as soon as I graduated from university. I went down the script, the path that everyone had said, go to school, study as hard as possible, get a few part-time jobs and stuff, but focus on your studies, graduate and try and get the best job possible, maybe rent, borrow a car, like get in debt for a car with car finance and, try and impress your peers. And if you suck the boss's dick for long enough, maybe you can level up in this career field. And maybe, just maybe, your promotions will overtake inflation. And maybe, just maybe, you can retire at 63 instead of 65. This was what was sold to us, and this was the path that I was going down. But I got really, really lucky. Because just after I graduated from university, I stumbled upon this book, which is an absolute goldmine, and it is genuinely the reason why I'm here today. The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. I'm going to summarize it for you. It taught me that there are 3 paths to wealth. There is the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane. And you need to determine which one you want to be in. The sidewalk is kind of like full of the bumbling idiots that you know. Probably kind of like the guys who smoke weed, who drink. They're making pretty much no progress to financial goals. They're there buying the newest branded clothing instead of just wearing a bathrobe. They're spending their paychecks on weed and delivery, and they make pretty much no money, 700 or however much it is. And they've got no goals, no ambitions. They daydream. You can probably think of people who are like this, who are on the sidewalk. The slow lane is the person who follows the script. The slow lane is the person who's better than the sidewalker. This is the person who reinvests, who saves money, who puts it into their pension. This is the good boy, the person who realized the script 50 years ago and really wanted to do well in that life. This is the person who tells you to go to university, get a good job, and suck the boss's dick, and maybe after, you can retire at 62 instead of 65. This is the person who reinvests in all this stuff. And he makes some progress. He's got some goals. He makes 27k a year, which is respectable. And he might hit his finance goals when he's 60 years old. Good boy. White picket fence, 2 children. Maybe they can only afford 1 right now. His wife has to work full time. His wife has to work a few weeks after giving birth. Good boy. You're getting fucked by the system. These are also the same people who often complain about entrepreneurs and say that what I'm saying here sounds offensive. I'm on their side. Because if you're a slow laner, if your parents are slow laners, I sound like some dick right now. But let me just tell you about the fast lane. And I am not the professional in this whatsoever, but I'm just I was a kid. I was a drunk kid who ended up discovering this. And the fast lane is achieved only through business. The fast lane is when you make a business that follows the commandments of sense. 5 principles, which I'll walk you through. When you make a business like that and you sacrifice a lot and you dedicate yourself to making that business into a success, suddenly you're on the fast lane to success. Suddenly you're on the fast lane to wealth. The slow lane is full of the doctors and 100%, by the way, let me just give a disclaimer. If there's people out there who really, really love their jobs and, they make 20k a year, but they love, okay, fair enough. This message goes out to the guys who don't even care about what they do. They just want to make money. Or you want to find joy in the thing that you do, but you don't really want to go to university. Every time I talk about entrepreneurship and business, there's always some cretins online saying, oh, but the doctors are really important. I've not said that they're not. Oh, but doctors can have really good lives. Of course they can. If you want to be a doctor, 100% go to university, follow that pathway. But if you aren't thinking like that, if you're thinking like, oh, I'm not really sure. Yeah, sure, it'd be nice to make a few thousand a month or 10,000 a month or 100,000 per month, but I don't really care that much what I do. I could be a YouTuber. I could be a doctor. I'm not too sure right now. Then please don't go to university. Don't go down the normal path because that path is just very slow. It's the slow lane. I want you to imagine this. Imagine on the slow lane to success, to wealth, there's a doctor. That doctor has went through years and years and years of education. He went to college, he went to university, he graduated from university, started working. In the UK, we have what's called junior doctors and they make 30k a year. That junior doctor is on the road right now. Then imagine that there's 10 of those guys. 10 of these junior doctors that went to school for 4 years or 8 years and imagine what they went through in that kind of environment. Then imagine that there's 100 junior doctors all working together, all working, making 30k a year, 100 of them. All of them have went to school for 4 years or 8 years or however long it is. All 100 make less money than me. Now you can say, oh, that's cap. That's surely got to be cap. This is, again, it's not disrespect to those guys. They work a lot harder than me. Their job's more important than mine. I'm just a YouTuber. But this is the difference between the fast lane and the slow lane. The slow lane aims to retire at 60 or 58. The fast lane aims to retire more like 30. 30 years of your life saved working a job that you maybe didn't like so much. The fast lane is the route to masculine freedom. You see, masculinity, this is a phrase, a topic that's spoke about so much these days, but still people don't really understand what masculinity is, right? You've seen Take go viral, you hear about masculinity, gotta be more masculine, but people don't actually explain what it is. You wanna know masculinity in one simple word? It is freedom. The more masculine you are, the more freedom that you want. the more of a release that you want from constraints and chains. And so financial freedom is usually the first pillar that most guys will get into. And so it is your duty as a masculine man to consider what will make you financially free and to be conscious and to be happy and confident of that decision. Because these days, it's almost seen as cringe wanting to be an entrepreneur, and people saying, oh, just go work traditional jobs and just go overwork and get underpaid. Come on, it'll build character. Sure. If you want to live that life, if you want that job, absolutely. But if you are here right now because you're a young, masculine man and you want to achieve financial freedom and you want to provide for your family, then the fast lane is, of course, the route to go. You learn how to work in a business. You make your own business. And I will walk you through these steps, just as I did. Because I learned this stuff in 3 years. It took me 3 years to get to this point. I'm very lucky that I stumbled upon this book. So those are the 3 lanes that you can get into to the root of wealth. Just for an actionable step, I want you just to think of one person who goes in each of these lanes. Who is the sidewalker that you know? I can imagine him right now wearing like branded clothing. He's got, that like the fashionable Gucci brand, or he spends quite a lot of money on that. He's got one of the newest iPhones, but he's late on his bills. Maybe he buys weed, or he buys alcohol, or he buys snack stuff that he shouldn't be able to afford. He only does the absolute bare minimum. You can think of who it is, right? Now pick someone for your slow laner. Who is like this person who only goes to the route that the Matrix wants them to go down? The good boy, they're working really hard. And we've got a little bit of respect for these guys. The slow laner is a lot better than the sidewalker is a complete degenerate. Slow laner is like a hard-working guy who's in school right now. And we've got still respect for him. He's got some good character traits. It's just education and exposure that these guys lack. Who is your sidewalker? Who is your slow laner? I can imagine, for example, my brother, my father. I can imagine some guys that I went to university with. These are the guys who have listened to the system's message. They just worked as hard as possible, and they went to school or whatever. Do you know any fast laners? What comes to mind for me is Andrew Tate, myself, E-Man, MJ DeMarco himself, the author of this book, Ali Abdaal, Andrew Kirby. I know all these young guys who are literally younger than 30, and they're all millionaires. Now that you have like your characters, your people for each 3, and you don't have to say this out loud, you don't have to be this asshole who tells, don't text your friend, oh, by the way, you're the sidewalker, haha, here's Hamza's video. Now that you know which person, just ask yourself truly, which person do you want to be more like when it comes to building wealth? Just choose. So how do you become a fast laner? There's a few principles to the kind of business that you need to build that will make you into a millionaire fast laner. There's 5, and they are sense, control, entry, need, time, and scale. Let me walk you through them. Control is whether or not you have control of the business and also the livelihood of it. If there's something with high control, a business with high control, that means that there's no one entity that can fuck you. If there's a business with low control, that means that there is some kind of entity, company, client who can ruin your life. What do you think YouTube is? Answer this right now. As a YouTuber, do I have high control or low control over my business? High or low? It's low. Right? Because YouTube as a company can just ban me, and they've shown that they will do this. So I have low control over my business. That's a bad thing. Then there is entry. Entry refers to how hard it is to enter this business. Is it super hard, which means that there's kind of like a moat around your business? You remember what a moat is in like history class? Like there'll be a castle and there'll be a moat which is dug out and filled with water or spikes or alligators, and that way it's like a defensive ring around your business. Entry is a moat. How hard is it to enter your business? As a YouTuber, how hard is it for another guy to just start making YouTube videos? Very easy. So in this case, we'll say that's a low entry, like it's a bad level of entry. How about need? how much of a need is there for this business? Think about the thing that you want to get into, or maybe YouTube. How much of a need is there? How much value are you providing? What level of pain points are there in the business or the market that you're getting into? Need is all about just how many people want to buy the thing that you're about to produce. For a YouTuber, it's very mixed. You might think, oh, it's a low need. For example, a doctor, we could say, is a really high need, really in demand. YouTuber, in a weird way, it's a medium to high need because of how much the demand is of people who watch YouTube or content or social media or TikTok, for example. You wouldn't think that a TikToker is needed, but there kind of is because the demand is there. And let's say with YouTube, this advice which I give out is very needed. So I wouldn't say that YouTube is low need, even if it's something that's a little bit pathetic, like an entertainment YouTuber who does these challenges of, like the I tried doing this and, Mr. Beast style thing. You can still say that's a high need because people are still watching that because people need to be entertained. Of course, they should probably get educated instead, but we can say that's relatively high need. So if you're thinking about business right now, you should be following along and asking these questions, and I'll walk you through like an actionable step in a second. Then time. And this is the one that most people actually know about. You want a business that's detached from your time so that your time has leverage. As a YouTuber, do I have a good use of time in this business? Is it detached from my time? Yes, I can make a video, and a video from 2 years ago is still making me money today. Awesome, there's high leverage on my time. For a doctor, for example, does he have high leverage on his time? Not at all. He can only work for 12 hours a day. He can't produce something that kind of does, the work for him, whereas the content does, like the video does the work for me. So he's got low usage of his time. And then finally, scale. Can you scale? Can you help or give value to hundreds or thousands or millions of people at once? As a YouTuber, you can. As a doctor, you can't. So these are just some examples. So sense. It's very interesting and it's very worthwhile for you to almost write down, if you wanted to do this, write down the letter CENTS and whatever business model you're thinking, put it against sense. Now, it does not need to be totally that every single one is checked off. For example, as a YouTuber, most of them aren't checked off. But it's just something to guide you into making a business decision. You might be wondering, what is the absolute ideal business with this sense protocol? Is there something that has yes on every single one? And there actually is. And this is probably the business which the most successful, intelligent people are getting into, but it's not one that you could probably get into, right? It's certainly not one that you should be considering as a beginner. When you're making maybe 100,000 per month, you can start to consider this. The business is making your own software. By this, I mean, for example, instead of being a YouTuber, you make YouTube. So this takes like millions of dollars. You've got a team of nerds who you've hired who are making the platform. You're making the next TikTok. You're making the next Uber. These things require a fuck ton of money, right? But for example, let's say software, like you're making your own YouTube. This is what it is. Is there control? Do you have control over the business? Yes, you actually do, because there's no one person who can just shut you down because you're making your own thing. Is there high entry? Do you have a large moat around your business? Is it hard for other people to do the same thing? Yes, of course, because it's super expensive. Is there a need for it? Yes, of course there is, because there's always a need for better technology, better apps. It's very cutthroat, but if you can be a few percentage better than Uber, after 5 years, you will take over and you will have that $1 billion market share. Is it leveraged on your time? Do you get like more output for your time? Yes, because the software will grow even when you're sleeping. And finally, is it scalable? Can 1 million people use your thing at once? Yes, they can. All 5. But that is super hard to get into. If you're thinking, oh, but I'll do it anyway, do the hard work. No. This isn't something that you can just start as like a beginner. It would be very foolish to have no experience, unless if you are maybe the software developer to begin with. If that's like the skill you've been working on for 5 years, 10 years, then go ahead. If you're more of like a skillless normal guy and you're thinking, okay, which business would make me 5K, 10K? Do not choose something like software. Once you're making 100K or 1 million per month, then you can go and make your own like TikTok or something, but that's a very big goal to move to. That was the Millionaire Fastlane, and it really did change my life. I have a video on my main channel if you want to go search how Andrew Tate got rich, and I did a video, a full length 1.5 hour video with the author of this book on his second book, and I just explained like the principles of this in a way deeper sense, and I told like some good stories. I explained how Andrew Tate may have made some money, and the author MJ DeMarco answered some questions for us. So you can just go search that on my my YouTube channel.